Hello and welcome to episode 1346 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, September 27th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, it's our last episode of the regular season. I don't think you and Jason are going, so I think it's your last episode too. How you doing this morning?
I am stressed. I am so stressed. I'm not gonna lie. This is gonna be a coming down to the wire type of season for me. And
And wasn't it last year too?
I mean it ended up coming down
When the
to the end
Sean
of the season.
Bouchard dream was born?
Yeah. It yeah, I'm stressed, man.
I feel you.
I've got some teams that are like competing for uh league titles. I've got some teams that are just competing for cash spots, and then I have one team that is trying to push its way into the overall payouts for
Currently
the
in
auction.
there.
Currently in there. I am currently 10th. Last year 12 teams were paid. This year 10 teams were paid. Last year I finished 13th.
Oh, if you finish 11th this year.
If I finish 11th this year, I'm going to I bubble that one more time. Like, I'd almost rather just drop and finish 17th.
Plummet, right.
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago I wasn't in the top 35.
Yeah, you've been surging.
So as much as I say oh man, I'm so stressed out, I just want the season to end. 2 weeks ago, I wasn't even competing, and now I'm like, oh my god, I just need another month of the season so I could really get
I can shoot all the way up.
Yeah, because I think the top I can get is maybe 7th. But I'll take it.
I think that would be possible. You can get all the way up there this weekend. But the heat behind you, man. Jason DuPont, Greg Martin, Jeff Zimmerman, Vlad Sedler. I mean, the cavalry's coming for you.
Vlad set up a little DM thread on Twitter with all of us to kind of cheer each other on and talk about hey, what kind of season it's been. So it's I mean,
and I should add the one where Jeff is competing, his 13th place team was against you, your third place in that league.
I was second until yesterday, so that's another one where I'm sweating it out. Can I get back into second place?
I know we say it all year, all the time, and we will continue to say forever. The standings can change so much all the way until the very last day. I don't have anything as exciting as that. I'm trying to grind out this money spot in my main. It's on the wire too, like every little thing. And every button I've pushed this week, Justin, has been the wrong one. I'm the anti-AJ Hinch. Tyler Anderson, fuck you. Davis Martin, fuck you. I should have known better than that anyway. Reed Detmer's triple fuck you for life. I can't wait to draft you in the winter at pick 350. I'm a stupid moron. Just everything I've done, stupid. And I've got no wins. My only opportunities for wins are Joey Cantillo. Oh, he got moved from Cincy to Houston too, by the way, which is awesome. Very cool. I'm not going to go over all of it. Who cares? I'm fighting for second or third place. But it's annoying. It's freaking annoying. But best of luck to you, Justin. I'm going to be following you and the aforementioned Greg. The Greg I just said is also the very same Greg. He is obviously chasing a top 10 spot there in your all's auction championship, but he's still sitting 4th overall in the main, right ahead of your podcast co-host, Dave McDonald, with a 30-point edge. And they're kind of battling there. I don't think Greg can necessarily catch Jason Santu, who has teams 2nd and 3rd. He's been in the top 3 there with Clark Olson. They've been kind of rotating around, but now Jason is sitting 2-3 with Clark at the 1 spot, Greg in the 4 spot. So everyone's going to be dialed in. And then I have to ask your thoughts on this doubleheader situation Monday. The wrinkle that throws into everything.
I mean, at least there's no fab, right? We're not doing fab on Sunday. And you're just locked in.
Yeah, it is what it is. Do you have any of these guys though? Are you feeling like you're going to have a couple Braves or Mets at bats down the stretch there? Do you have any of those guys?
So I've got in a couple leagues, I have Francisco Lindor, who has been out with I can't remember what it is, knee or
Back?
hamstring or
I thought it was
back.
back.
Yeah, back. That's right. Yeah. Now he's kind of back in action, but it's kind of nice because it's like, hey, maybe there's a chance he's like gonna play potentially in both of these games with more time off. But it's
I have
also like,
Acuna,
will
so
they?
I don't want him to. I want Acuna to get the 2 games and just get some stats for me on Monday.
So I'm a little bit like, oh, I didn't want the season to go an extra
No, and
day. Like
they played this so wrong, by the way. I think they should have done something earlier in the week because now you're screwing over, those 2 teams. Only one of them's going to make the playoffs, right? I guess there's a world where both could make it, but that's unlikely. And so you're screwing over whoever goes that route. I guess they both could make it. Like if Arizona fell apart over the weekend, there is a world where both make it. And then they got to play on Monday. And like, I know, there was a whole big debate last year of like, do you even want time off? Because you want to keep rolling, blah, blah, blah. I get it, whatever. But I guarantee
they
these
didn't
2
really
teams,
have a choice, right? Like as a hurricane coming.
no, but they knew it was coming. Why didn't they play a doubleheader on Tuesday?
Oh, I guess they could have, yeah.
Or move up. Like they knew this was coming with some pretty good certainty. Hurricanes don't just pop up out of nowhere. So they played Tuesday. Why don't you at least just do a doubleheader then? Like just preemptive doubleheader Tuesday. Then you only have 1 game that you're trying to figure out that you could maybe slot in on the weekend. Obviously, we've learned that we now subsequently couldn't get it in on the weekend, but then you're only playing 1 on Monday at least.
Yeah.
I just think they could have been a little bit more proactive on the front end of the week. I know, inclement weather, like you said, is difficult and it does create a wrinkle. But from everything I've been reading, this was telegraphed well enough to know that this is coming. This is real. This is going to affect the potential to play baseball. So then preemptively act. Even if the weather didn't, like, let's just say they played a doubleheader on Tuesday and then it was crystal clear the weekend. Who gives a shit?
Mm-hmm.
But now you got this Monday situation, which I think really screws those teams. It creates havoc for fantasy, I'll tell you that. So now, it's kind of a bummer, though, because instead of that great Sunday ending where everyone's playing at the same time and everything's going to get settled around that same 6 o'clock Central time period, now you've got these 2 extra games that's going to throw everything up on Monday. When are those games? I guess it would be early, right? They're not going to.
Yeah, I assume so. I can check it.
Yeah, first one's at 12:10. Yeah, they're going right away. 12:10 and 3:40. So it's just a straight doubleheader. Get this shit done ASAP. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to change leagues, of course. Those are 2 good teams with tons of quality fantasy players. So it's going to move the needle, and it's going to be crazy. But good luck to you, Justin. I know we'll be texting all weekend. I'll be rooting hard for you. Like I said, I'm just trying to secure my little money spots here. So I'm rooting for my boys to bring home their titles. But let's talk about some big second half surges here on the hitting side. And I really want to get your thoughts on how they're going to do this weekend. No, I'm kidding. I want to see how you feel about them in 25. Because there's some names on here that you and I have loved over the years. There's some names that we've moved on from. And there's some names that, this guy, really? And I'm just curious if any of these are piquing your interest after their big second half. And we're ranging here from first rounders all the way down to like waiver pickups to non-entities. Let's start at the tippy top here. And we're going by WRC plus, weighted runs created plus. You had to have had 150 plate appearances in the first half and 100 in the second half. The reason for the lowering in the second half is because it's not equal halves. So I just want to try to get the sample where guys qualified on both sides there. So the number 1 mover is a big player on this show, Gavin Lux. He finally came through. And I got to say, I'm pretty happy that I was able to pick him back up because I drafted him, cut him in a bunch of spots because he was terrible. But I got him back in my main, and I've been able to benefit from this 88-point WRC plus gain from the first half to where he now has a 148 in the second half. That means he's 48% better than league average. That's an amazing rate. Is this as simple as he was not quite healthy enough coming off the big knee injury and just needed some time to adjust? And if so, does that bring you into the mix with Gavin Lux next year? In fact, he's close to making his full season league average. He's at 98 on the year. So what do you think about Lux? It's a great second half, but is it enough?
It's not even necessarily a great second half. It was a great July and August. September has been pretty disappointing.
That is true.
he's hitting 204, no home runs in the month of September, and no stolen bases. So I mean, he's
Looks
been
like he's playing less too, though. Played 21 games, but only started 15. So I don't know if they've hit a rash of lefties that's hurt Lux a little bit, or what, because he's unusable against lefties this year. 402
yeah,
OPS. So
yeah,
you're right.
it's
It
been
has been
awful.
2 great months. So what do you make of that for Lux then? He had 8 of his 10 homers in those 2 months.
I mean, I think I'm always gonna kind of be a fan because I do see so much upside still in the bat. Uh, I think a lot of it'll depend on what the price is coming into 2025.
Right. Right.
How many people look at kind of the second half splits and go, "Oh, this is a breakout. We're finally getting the breakout for Gavin Lux," or if people just like kind of ignore him because of what's gone on and what the Dodgers do. Right? Do the Dodgers bring someone in
Exactly.
to play second base? There's going to be some attractive guys on the free agency pile this year, so I could definitely see the Dodgers, kind of. I assume they're going to go for pitching more, considering what the hell has happened to their pitching staff this
Right.
year. But
We know they're going to go for pitchers, but that everyone's going to have them going for Adames too. Now, that
yeah,
wouldn't necessarily affect Lux. Miggy Rowe would become like a utility guy if they kept him around, I think, and Lux could still play second. I don't think Rojas would like push Lux off of second. I think Lux is their starting second baseman against righties.
mhm.
Now, does the potential that maybe have to be platooned, how does that factor in for you? Is it going to push him down 2, 3 rounds? Like he didn't go in the 11 round Deadpool hitter podcast draft.
Which he shouldn't have.
I don't think Lux should have gone in the top 11 rounds. Is he like 13 through 16 round for you? Like where are you thinking of scooping Gavin Lux in? Because the fantasy stats are not eye popping. It was 10 homer. It's 10 homers, 5 steals, and like those 2 big months, like you said.
I think he's got to go outside the top 15 rounds.
Okay.
If he's going inside the top 15, in a 15 teamer, mind you, right? So if you're playing 10 or 12s, like I'm saying, he's probably close to undraftable.
I think you take him like really late reserve pick in those
you,
rounds, in those drafts.
I mean, you could potentially do that. I mean, at the end of the day, like he's losing like eligibility because wasn't he outfield eligible too this year, or was he
No,
not?
he had, yes, it would have carried over that he was second outfield because he had 28 games in 2022. Gavin Lux did. This year, it's just the straight up second base. He played an inning and a third over at short. That ain't doing anything for you. So he's a second baseman only, but second base sucks.
That's true, as being
So
pointed out by Aaron in the
yeah, there you
in
go.
the
I didn't even
chat.
see that. So yeah, great call, Aaron. Because yeah, I totally agree. Second base blows. So your boy Keith Colt, a Lux Colt late round double scoop there for my middle and second base after I get like a premium shortstop. That sounds appealing to me.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm starting to pump the brakes a little bit on my Gavin Lux love. The fact that he has been platooning, he probably will platoon next year, makes him less desirable because he doesn't necessarily have a curing tool for fantasy, right? Like he needs
That
to be
is
an
fair,
accumulator.
but I personally, for Lux, believe that there's still a decent bit of power here, like 20s type
I do
power. I
too.
know he
Yeah,
only
I
had
do too.
10. And so I think we really see the breakthrough next year, right? I've been on this guy for years. I understand that. So some of you are rolling your eyes like, oh God, Paul likes Gavin Lux. That's shocking. I understand, but I'm not deterred even by this season here, right? I was a little overzealous thinking that he's back from the injury. He's going to be good day one. Okay, he wasn't quite there, but now a full year removed and a full year of gameplay under his belt. Yeah, I'm going to have him down to pop off again next year because there's not going to be a big price tag attached to it. And then next year, if we really don't see like a true step where he's like a 115, 120 WRC plus for the full year, 18 to 20 homers, and like a 265, 270 average from Lux. If we don't see something like that, then I'm going to start to move off. Like it's put up or shut up time next year. And he will be the magical age of 27. So he's guaranteed to have a good year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny
You
age
cannot
27.
deny that. Let's move on to our next guy. You're softening a little bit on Lux. I'm still bought in. I'm sure we'll talk about him in the offseason too. But big 88-point swing in the second half was powered by his July and August. We'll see if he can close strong here this weekend or do anything in the playoffs too, because he could get a playoff tax, which we actually don't want. Let's keep the price down. We don't want him hitting like 7 homers in the playoffs and then everyone's on the Gavin Lux train. What about Jeff McNeil? I got to admit, a bit of a non-entity for me this year, and he's currently hurt with the fractured wrist. He's been out for a few weeks now, so his season ended prematurely, and that could have an impact on how you feel about him next year. I totally grant that, but he did have a big second half turnaround himself with an 86-point jump in WRC plus to 156 for Jeff McNeil. So he's going to end with 12 homers, 5 steals, and only a 238 average. That's the tough part, right? Average is exactly what you bet on him for. If he doesn't fracture his wrist, he probably has 3 more weeks of quality work under his belt because he was looking really, really good. Like Lux, it's a July and August situation, but I can't crush him for September because it was 5 games before the wrist. So where are you at on McNeil? Generally an empty batting average guy, 270, 10-10 last year, 326, 9 and 4 the year before that. Can he get back to his batting average ways? And do you have any interest in a 33-year-old dirt cheap Jeff McNeil?
I probably don't. I just like he just doesn't do enough of everything to
Or anything
to warrant. And like it's he has been a batting average in the past or batting average asset in the past. He really hasn't been the last, well, I guess he was.
270 I think counts.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
like it's hard to get average, but it was so boring. Like I said, he went 10-10, 270.
Yeah. He's just one of those guys that hurts you and everything else. So it doesn't make a ton of sense unless you get to that point in the draft and you go, where I do like Jeff McNeil? I like him in DCs. I like him as a guy that multi-position eligible, that you're going to have a lot of other options, and can kind of accumulate. But I think in just your standard, I just combined Roto and
I like it
in your Randered leagues. Jeff McNeil just doesn't really move the needle for me at all.
Right. And I think that's totally fair. But I do agree that in DCs, that's the interesting spot for somebody like Jeff McNeil. We talk about the crusty old guys. He is going to be remarkably cheap. I think he's past pick 300 easily. And,
he was a guy that picked up off the wire this year, right?
Like because he'd been cut.
When I needed batting average, and I was like, well, Jeff McNeil's been kind of hot for the last few weeks. So I picked him up, and I enjoyed, what I got out of him because I really needed batting average at that point. But when I'm constructing a roster, I'm hoping to hit batting average early so I don't have to worry about it late.
Exactly. But you want that late Jeff McNeil in a DC, take him over some prospect that you're not sure where their system, where they fit in next year. Like I do think those Jeff McNeil type picks, I was gonna say DJ LeMahieu type, but I think he's just totally cooked. So not quite him. But I do think somebody like Jeff McNeil could add something in a DC. But that's the only place I'm taking him. This was one of the ones where I'm like, he's a third on the list, but yes, Nick Fortes is here, catcher for the Marlins. In fact, we're going to talk about a couple Marlins. Look at them playing some froggy ball yesterday. They had a chance to really become Tigers fans' favorite team for a bit there in that extra innings game against Minnesota, but they couldn't quite close them out. So Tigers still need to win one, or Minnesota needs to lose one more, but I feel pretty good about my team making the playoffs. But Nick Fortes, big second half here, partly because he was unbelievably dreadful in the first half because he had a plus 83-point gain to a 109, which means, Justin, that he had a 26 in the first half WRC plus. That's impossible. So again, I doubt you're going to have a ton of love here for Nick Fortes, but I do remember he had some fantasy intrigue a couple of years ago. 72 games with 9 homers, 5 steals. People are like, ooh, a little sneaky C2 here. Could he be 15-8 type of vibe? He flopped last year, and technically he's flopped this year too, because he has a 59 composite OPS plus. Do you put anything into the second half surge for Fortes? Still just 28, has an opportunity in Miami. Is there anything here for any league format?
I think that Fortes could be one of these guys that is a batting average asset from the catcher position. So in your deep 2 catcher leagues, I don't mind taking a gamble on Nick Fortes. Now, if his second half pushes him up like towards the top.
It won't.
Part.
It won't.
It shouldn't, but like you just never really know. Like you said, like Fortes was a guy that I really loved a few years ago, and a lot of people really loved a few years ago. And so sometimes people remember that, and then they look for these little reasons to like grasp on the guys. If he's catcher 17, I'm probably not interested. But if he's catcher like 26 or 27, yeah, like I don't have a problem with that, because I think he's going to play every day. And if a catcher can give you like a 270, 280 batting average and be playing regularly, like that's not bad, especially if you pair him with, maybe I'm trying to think of a catcher that
Langoliers, Alvarez. You're talking about a no average guy?
Yeah, exactly. Like a guy who you're going to get power from, but you're probably going to get hurt in your batting average. The Cal Raleighs, the Langoliers, the Alvarezes, like you said, like Fortes could be like a nice little pairing there in a 15-team 2-catcher league. But outside of that, like those of you playing 1-catcher leagues, those of you who play in 10 or 12-team leagues, he's not going to register.
No, I totally agree there. Another DC type play where you need 3 to 4 catchers, depending how strong your top guy is. But you look at the last 43 games here, it's a 302 average for Nick Fortes with a couple homers. You're not going to get much else but the batting average, but you rarely get average from catcher. So getting that little supplemental average from your fourth catcher in a DC, not too bad. That's Nick Fortes for Miami. And Justin, I bet you can't even name their backup. So in terms of playing time, like he's got an open window there. Do you know the backup catcher for the Miami Marlins? Do you want to foster a guess?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
If I told you his first name was Johnny, would that help you in any way, shape, or form?
Bench.
Yep. Damn it, you got it. I didn't think you would, but I shouldn't have given you such a good hint. No, it's Johnny Pereda. Pereda.
Oh, yeah. No,
and it's Jahani, like Johnny Peralta.
Yeah.
The H. So, yeah.
Yeah, I never would have gotten this.
That was really funny. I like that a lot. Staying in Miami. Yes, got a little good Miami vibes here as we close out. You know who I'm going to talk about? Well, maybe you don't, but it's an only really good player. It's Jake Burger, baby. Now, he is one that, like, it was really bad early on to where I don't think I blame folks that cut Jake Burger. Maybe, depends on the situation and everything, but he doubled his second half from 72 to 145. So it's not literally doubling, but a 73-point gain there. He had to totally turn around his season. Obviously, Miami has been bad. But, he came there last year, was a big part of their surge down the stretch that helped them get in the playoffs. I still forget sometimes that Miami made the playoffs last year. I'm like, wait, what? But, they crept in. Burger, interestingly enough, this year, as a right-hander, has been awful against lefties. He's done all of his damage against right-handers. 804 OPS against them, 671 against lefties. Only had 7 total homers through June, and then popped 8 in July. 10 more in August, and another 4 here in September. So it has been 2 excellent months, July and August, and then a pretty good September here to finish. What do we make of Burger? Was it just, some bad luck early on? Do we believe in him as a true power entity even in Miami? Because now he's shown for a season and a half that he can hang there. What do you think of Jake Burger?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Burger and just how much he was struggling back in June, on June 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, he's, hit 257 with 25 home runs.
We unlocked.
Like, but I think what we said was like, hey, like, this is kind of who you get when you get with Jake Burger.
Right.
Like, we wouldn't have probably talked about like the kind of season he was having, if it wasn't for like he started off that way, right? If like the slump came in the middle of the season, like we probably would have just been like, he's just fine. So I think he is kind of who he is, which is a guy that he's going to strike out too much and he's going to go through cold spells. But at the end of the day, you're going to look at the numbers and go, yeah, I kind of got exactly what I was looking for, 30 home runs and a 250 batting average, which especially in this day and age when you're needing power, at a cheap price, like is perfect. And so like, I love Jake Burger. He's also going to be dual eligible again next season, first and third base, which I love as well. So especially because we've talked about how down first base is as a position. So,
Right.
yeah, he's going to be on a lot of my teams next year because he's a guy that you're not going to have. You can get 30 home runs from that you don't have to pay a huge price on.
Right. We're burger boys on this podcast
Yeah.
here, so we're going to be in. And I agree. I could go back and listen, but I feel confident that we would have said on that June 6th pod, like, stay the course here. This is the type of guy that you get, and you got to check in at the end of the year, like you said. Don't get caught up in the ups and downs. Berger might be one of those guys that's just better in roto than head to head because the large
Absolutely.
variance. He looks like a dud for you for 3 months, and then all of a sudden flips it around. Counterpart on the West Coast, or not West Coast, but out west, would be Eugenio Suárez, a veteran version of this, where it's like,
He
it
went
was
through his
really
own
bad,
struggles. Yeah.
right? It was really, really bad. And like, I do understand some people that would have cut in like 12 teamers, but he's another guy you look up at the end of the year and boom, Suarez got his 30 and 100. He's a homer and 2 ribbies short of 3,100. So Berger, still really like him. I don't think the price will be overly high next year. He did go in the pull hitter draft. He was pick 122. I don't think that's an outlandish price. All right, let's stay with the crappy teams. Give them a little love here down the stretch. Andrew Benintendi is obviously on the worst team in baseball history, but he's doing his part to try to get a few wins on the board there. He's up 72 points, up to 132 WRC plus here in the second half, and he's had a little power surge to go with it. Certainly relative to Benintendi's totals, he's got 12 second half homers, including a huge August, 7 homers, 17 ribbies, and a 278 average. He's carried it on here in September with 414 and 274. Dead cat bounce here for Benintendi, or something to look at going into next year. What do you think of Andrew Benintendi?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit interesting because he was like extremely unlucky in the first half. Like he had a 221 BABIP, which led to that 201 batting average. In the second half, like it's gone up to 280, and that's led to this 263. I don't know like how much the power gains, like I don't want to be like projecting Andrew Benintendi for 20 something home runs just because he hasn't really been a power guy
ever. Even his best year was that 2020 season.
Right. He has a chance if he could hit a couple bombs this weekend against the Tigers,
please don't
set his record for 21 home runs. But like I do think he is a guy that people will ignore. So like I think Benintendi will be really cheap. And while he is an accumulator, that contract means he's going to play. I mean, let's not forget that he signed a 5-year, $75 million deal. He is not a free agent until 2028. He is playing every day next season in left field.
He's only 32, 30 as well, by the way. It's worth pointing out. Like, Andrew Benintendi's also not old. And so, they got to try to get their money's worth. And he's not so bad that, like, it's like playing a Javier Baez contract.
Yeah, no, it's
he's a
fine.
capable player.
Like, he's, he's probably going to be, around a league average bat in terms of like the, WRC plus, maybe a little bit below. And then like, he's a fine, mediocre defender. Like he's,
Is this another crusty DC pick for you?
Yeah, perfect DC pick.
I think Benintendi, I know we keep repeating this refrain, but like these older guys that go so cheap, they are gold in these leagues. Like, and even I'm talking gold, like even if he does this season again, which is going to end up at 228, 19, and 62. Because you weren't playing him early on because you drafted him so late, but then you can get pockets of that usefulness out of Benintendi, and it's that guaranteed as it can be with an injury concern like his, but it's guaranteed 500 plate appearances. If he is alive, you're getting 500 plate appearances, and you're probably getting it at pick 350. I don't think Benintendi, because like I said, he still has a 228 average. His price point is not going to be high next year, right?
No, it's going to be dirt cheap. Like, I mean, I think he's one of those guys, especially because, like, people, when you get towards the end of a draft, like, people are looking for upside. They're not looking for a guy like this. So, like,
a lot of people like the flashy picks, but these boring picks are where you can win. He went 373 in excuse me, he went 373, Benintendi did, in draft champions this year. I don't think this season moves the needle even with the big second half. So,
I do need to
pardon me.
I do need to correct myself real quick though. He's an atrocious defender.
Oh my God, he used to be good, but I think
Yeah.
the years over on his body have taken that away from him. And I do think that that's something that I struggle with too, where I'm like, if a guy was a good defender, I will carry that reputation for them for like 4 or 5 years, and it's like, wait a minute, they've lost a step or seven, and Benintendi's definitely one of those guys. He
But
sucks.
it's also an organization that has put Andrew Vaughn and Eloy Jimenez in that outfield. So
right. So he looks like a
he's
Gold
not
Glover to them.
yeah, he's not like losing time at all. Like that
And
contract means he's playing.
in fairness, he is 4 years removed from a Gold Glove in 2021. So
Because
that's where
those
we
are
got that
always based
reputation for
on
Benintendi. I know, but they're way better these days, right? Like when we were younger,
Yeah.
the Gold Glove Defensive Award, yes, kids, the Gold Glove Defensive Award was based on hitting. I know that sounds like the dumbest thing in the universe because it was, but it is the truth. But they're much better these days. So, I give some credence to that, but that is still back in 2021. And Benintendi, had a bunch of injuries throughout his career, little knick-knack injuries. They start to pile up, and he had a dreadful defensive season this year. All right, let's continue on here and talk about, we're going to get into the Arizona portion of the show because we're going to see, and it's not just these three guys, but you start to understand why they've had such an amazing second half because they got three guys on this list. If we did like a pitcher version, they probably got some guys there. They've just completely turned things around. But let's start with an acquisition that they had who couldn't have come at a better time. And Josh Bell isn't even playing regularly these days. And yet I guarantee you the front office still views him as an amazing acquisition. Because what did he do, Justin? He filled the gap when Christian Walker went on the IL.
Yeah.
And that was key because obviously he is one of their core pieces, Christian Walker is, and losing him was huge. Josh Bell comes over, puts up an 802 OPS in 40 games with them. Like he literally was just Christian Walker when they needed him to be. Now he did struggle a bit earlier, so he's added a very nice 69 points to his OPS, to his WRC plus, up to 146. Like I said, he's not really playing anymore. He's platoon fill-in bat now that Walker is back. I could see him being a nice playoff piece for them. He is a free agent, so he's almost certainly going to have a new team, although Walker is a free agent too. I wonder if Arizona will choose one of those two. But what do you think of Josh Bell? I know we've had some love for him on this show over the years, but did he do enough here in the second half to stay on your radar?
I mean, I think he did. Like, here's the thing, like Bell is just a consistent good accumulator when he's playing. Like right now, it kind of sucks because he's not playing, but you kind of understand that with the construction of the roster. And like you said, he was just pretty much picked up off of waivers. Like he was DFA'd by the Marlins. And
they haven't even given the player back. It was for a player to be named later.
Yeah.
After he was DFA'd, like you said, and they haven't even said who that player is yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really just depends on where Josh Bell lands. Like, is he in a position where he's playing every day? I assume he will be. Like, I don't. So. He's gonna be dirt cheap. Like he'll probably be on like a 1-year pillow contract. I just, for me, like he is probably more of a DC guy again. And if you're like me, you do your DCs earlier, and I think he's one of these guys that might have to wait until close to March to sign. Kind of
that'll keep him cheap though. People will not draft Josh Bell like that. That
I will take a gamble. Yeah, I will definitely take a gamble on him because I do think he is still good enough to be playing at the major league level and should find at least a part-time, if not full-time role. Just don't go to the Pirates because they'll cut you right before you reach any incentive. So
Rowdy Tellez, that shit infuriates me.
I just don't get it. Like, I mean, I do from like they are one of the cheapest organizations in professional sports.
Just so callous though, dude.
I don't even care about the because like baseball is callous. Like I don't care about that part. Like that to me,
but like he wasn't playing. Like he was fine.
You're an up and coming team that has a dirt cheap payroll that if you add a few pieces to, like, you could be a real contender in that Central. What free agent is going to come there after seeing
With any
them cut?
incentive, right?
Yeah, after them seeing you guys cut someone who's 4 plate appearances away from a $200,000. It's a $200,000 bonus. Like,
That's why it's so ridiculous to me, because it's like, it's nothing, dude. It's a rounding error for baseball teams. And I know their
yeah,
owners are greedy pieces of shit, but like, that shit just infuriates me, dude. It's just
yeah,
so. For those that don't know, this is Rowdy Tellez we're talking about. He's
yeah,
4 plate appearances away, 425 plate appearances, clicks in an extra 200K, and they DFA him. Like, it's just so nakedly blatant too.
yeah,
If he had like a 42 OPS plus, sure, okay, I get it. Like, he'd been bad, and you get the bonus of not having to pay that money. Like, and yes, he'd been bad in September. He literally had a 464, but he was coming off 3 brilliant months in a row, June, July, and August for Tellez. So fuck the Pirates for that. That was such
yeah.
bullshit.
But I mean, back to Josh Bell. Like, there's not much difference in the first half to the second half in terms of like the underlying stats. Like, he, I think, was just a bit unlucky. And if you look at like the BABIPs, like 265 BABIP, and I'm actually not using first half, second half. I'm using time in Miami to time in Arizona.
Yeah.
265 BABIP led to a 228, batting average, in Miami. And then when he gets to Arizona, he's got a 330 BABIP with a 281. So like, he's probably a 260-ish hitter that could potentially, hit somewhere between 17 and 22 home runs as long as he's playing full time. But it will just depend on the role that Josh Bell lands on when he kind of finds his spot in free agency.
Right. And, again, that can keep the price cheaper during the winter. Not that when he signs, it's going to skyrocket. But I think
But
if you
again,
do
another
like,
deep league guy, like,
yep, this is
drafting
a DC
whole.
situation that we're going to get in on. A lot of these guys fit well in those DCs. We're taking the boring accumulator types is very valuable. Believe it or not, we have not talked about his teammate Corbin Carroll for quite some time, despite the fact that he's been on fire. He has come around almost entirely, and he's added, let me see, I've lost my tab there, 68 points to a 147 WRC plus for Corbin Carroll. Now, during his struggles, it always felt like maybe the lingering shoulder mixed with extreme bad luck was creating this awfulness. He had 2 homers through June, and the fact that he was playing every single day told me that even if it was the shoulder, it wasn't a big enough issue to take him off the field. So, like, how concerned do I have to get here with Corbin Carroll? Turns out not much at all, and I hope that nobody listening to this show cut him, because at no point did that make any sense. Ever. I don't say that with hindsight. I say that knowing at the time that it would have been the stupidest thing possible. Do not do stuff like that when you're talking about a first round guy struggling. And this is why, as I know people will get mad when, you're 6-7 weeks in the first round are still struggling, and people like us are saying, I wouldn't even consider cutting him. This is why.
Yeah.
Since July now, 888 OPS for Corbin Carroll with 19 homers and 18 steals. You know what that is a pace for? 40-40. 42 homers, 40 steals is what the full season pace would be for that. Does Corbin Carroll zip back into the first round?
I don't think so. I just think there's too many other first round guys that are going to.
It is a deep first. Second round then?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm letting him get past the second.
I think he's in the second round, and that would be the earliest I would consider it. Here's the thing. Like, I think a lot of us are going to chalk up the first half struggles due to like a reoccurring shoulder issue. Until he gets that fixed, I think this could be a reoccurring shoulder issue.
Right.
And that is going to scare me off of taking him unless he just drops to a point in a draft where I go, it's too good of an opportunity. Like,
you take him at Tatis. Sorry to interrupt you. Doesn't he have a recurring shoulder issue?
He got it fixed.
Did he? I actually don't know. Okay.
Yeah, when he got suspended, he had surgery on it.
So is that what does Carroll need surgery? And he's just not. I
don't know. I'm not a doctor, but as a person with a reoccurring shoulder issue, that has never gotten it fixed, like it like I just worry that we're going to have these moments. And I think there are going to be times where with Corbin Carroll, like you're going to get seasons like we got last year where he's just elite the entire time.
Right.
And then I think there's going to be, that's the crazy thing is like people who are complaining about Corbin Carroll, you are not losing your season.
You're not.
Like
The
21
only,
home
I
runs,
will give
32 stolen
I will give a
bases, like,
little leeway there because I like to push back on that too when people blame one person for their season. Though 50 points lost in batting average is pretty tough. That would be tough to make up.
But like
because you were banking on batting average from Corbin Carroll. But to your point,
119 runs.
Yeah,
like,
and 21-32 on the homers and steals. Like he's not why you lost.
155 games already. He's going to get 3 more games.
3 more. The only thing I'll give you is if you can show me your standings where you were like 2 batting average points away from winning your league, then I will let you blame Corbin Carroll because the batting average is the one piece that he really failed you.
Yeah.
But that's it.
I mean, like I said, I think he's going to be a second-round pick, probably an early second-round pick. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that necessarily. Will he end up on my teams? I don't know that he's going to. Like, I think, because would you rather have Corbin Carroll or would you rather have Julio Rodriguez? Because I think Rodriguez is going to be in that same spot.
Yeah. Carroll.
Oh, okay. I'm taking Rodriguez.
I liked both, and they are going to be paired together a ton. First-round disappointments that had second-half surges, what are we doing with them type vibe. I think they both go in the second round consistently, and I think they should. I think that's the right spot for them. Let me see where Julio is on our list. Why is he not on the list here? I felt like he would for sure qualify, but yeah, because I was going over the big surger list. I'm trying to figure out like why he wouldn't qualify. His OPS has gone from 839 to 690. I guess that's not a big enough.
Maybe he didn't have enough games.
He got plate appearances in both.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't figure it. I don't know why I can't find him on my list here. But anyway, Corbin Carroll, you're not wrong about like maybe still carrying some of those shoulder concerns. But man, he really did turn it around. He dropped 11 homers in August and then 10 steals in September. Really closing, showing people like, hey, I'm still a god. And then a guy I hinted at earlier, a Eugenio Suárez, also had a colossal turnaround in a Jake Bergian type way. And there you go. You got 3 guys on this list here for Arizona. And that's just a big piece of why they are so good here in the second half. Suárez was one of those, like I said, I think there was some merit to cutting in like 12s in that, because even if you kind of felt like, yeah, he'll probably kind of get his numbers going a bit in the second half, he had two sub 600 OPS totals in May and June, and then a 667 in April, and 2 homers per month. I don't know if I would have cut him in a 15. I think I probably would have been okay with it. I have to be honest. I don't, even knowing who Suárez is and the ebbs and flows, if you told me on June 30th that you cut the guy who had 6 homers and a 196 average, I don't think I'm clowning anybody.
I picked him up in a bunch of leagues. Yeah. So, like, he got cut in a lot of 15s.
I don't blame folks for cutting him.
I don't either.
But he completely turned it around. So what do you think about Suárez? Go ahead.
I mean, he is who he is. Like, everything we said about Jake Berger is, like, just an older version for, Eugenio Suárez. Like,
right.
I think this is another one of these guys where he is going to, be fairly affordable because he just seems to always be fairly affordable. We also
especially as he gets older.
Yeah, we need to see if Arizona picks up this option. I don't know that they're going to, but actually don't even know how much the option's for. So
I got you.
They actually could, because he was on a 7-year, $66 million contract, so that's less than 10 mil. Probably.
It's 15. It's one of those ones where it's bigger.
They're not picking that up. So, so it'll depend on where Suárez ends up, but I could see him coming. Like, maybe they decline the option
and then try to get him at like 12.
And try to bring him back at like 10, 11, 12, something like that, because he's had the vast majority of success. Oh wait, no, he was in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's where he popped off.
For some reason, I thought he was in Arizona before. I guess he never
was. Arizona, Cincy to Seattle to Arizona.
That's right.
You know, he is a consistent. Sorry to interrupt you real quick. He's a consistent second half guy too.
Isn't
His April, May, and June are all 700 something OPSs. His July, August, and September for his career are all 800 something OPSs. So
Mhm.
Suarez is one of these guys that heats up. So maybe it is where, like, if you draft him in Roto, just don't look at the numbers until the end of the year. Just
Yeah.
trust, you
I
know?
mean, here's his homer totals since 2018. 34, 49, 15 in the 2020 season, right? So
Right.
60 games to get to 15. 31, 31, 22 last year, and he's at 29 this year. The outlier is the 22 last year. Like, you're booking
Yep.
30 home runs for Eugenio Suárez every single year. And again, you won't have to pay very much for him,
I
especially
agree.
considering he's likely a free agent. So, like, yeah, I'm totally fine drafting Eugenio Suárez. I probably will draft him in a ton of leagues.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, one of these guys is probably better in Roto than head to head because of that
Absolutely.
volatility. But you just check in on season end, and he looks great. Had to get your boy in here. You know, I know it's been some ups and downs for Cedric Mullins, but you look up at the end of the year here, and it's looking pretty strong. 62-point surge in WRC plus to a 140 in the second half. He's 18 homers, 32 steals now. All of a sudden, he is hitting 231. So the batting average has been crappy the last 2 years, 233 last year, but you know, upper teens homers and back into the 30 steals after 19 last year in 116 games. How do you feel about Ced the Entertainer going into his age 30 season next year?
Um, I mean, I will always love Cedric Mullins for the man that he has been for me in
Yeah,
my career.
for who he was in
Um,
2021
yeah,
with the 30-30
like
season.
I will always be known as the guy who like called out the Cedric Mullins season. Doesn't matter like what good or bad calls I make in the future. Like Cedric Mullins, like this
They
is
can't
my
take that
version
from
of
you.
Corey Kluber, right? Like where like
Right.
like I saw it coming in, like it was a massive payday for me. That being said, like I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with drafting Cedric Mullins if you can get him at a cheap price. Problem is, he is now a strong side platoon player who hits at the bottom of the lineup.
Mm-hmm. And what's that PT looking like? They're going to keep having guys push
Yeah,
the older guys if they're struggling.
hmm yeah. So this is also his first year that he's going to be entering arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we don't know what the Orioles are going to look like from a front office perspective in terms of like how much money they're willing to spend. They have a new owner.
We think
They,
the new ownership's gonna gravitate toward a little bit more
yeah.
spending with this window opening. That's
I
what we
mean the
think.
The owner is, I'm going to say former, but I mean, at one point he was like a massive fantasy player, right? So
Yes.
like he loves fantasy, he loves numbers, like he loves like these guys. So like maybe he does go out, like he should go out and pay Corbin Burns, who's a pending free agent. You know,
Right.
uh, but will they decide like, hey, we've got so much talent, especially in the outfield from some young guys, like is it time to let Cedric go? Now, on the plus side, he's still a fantastic defender and he's going to play regularly if he is in Baltimore. It just he's not going to hit against lefties. While he at least last I looked, he is actually hitting much better against lefties in the second half this year. It was mostly because they really protect him
Right.
against lefties.
Right.
So
Right. Right. They don't let Ced
uh
see too many.
yeah, so like they're just putting him in there in spots, uh, and or allowing him to stay in the game when a lefty reliever comes in,
Mm-hmm.
because he's such a good defender and they want to protect the lead with the defense later on in the season. So I think you're gonna have to like really limit his plate appearance upside, because like there's just no way he's getting back to like a 600. He had in 2021, 2022, he had 675 and 672 plate appearances, respectively, for Cedric Mullins in those two seasons. Last year, 455. That was mostly injury, but this year he's gonna just barely get. He may not even get over 500.
If he plays
In,
two of the games, he needs 8 plate appearances to reach 500
yeah,
for Cedric Mullins.
so like there's a chance like if he goes 1 for 3, and 1 for 4, he ends up with 499.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is a little injury time missed, but ultimately, I don't think he's going to be a guy who is going to be that you can like comfortably project for 500 plate appearances next year.
No.
So you have to kind of account for that.
Yeah, you do have to be careful with that. Cedric Mullins could fall into a little bit more of a platoon role, part-time role, like 350 plate appearance types.
Yeah.
Now, there can still be value there with a little bit of punch and some speed, but it really changes the dynamic of how you're drafting him too. So
At the end of the day, he's 1832.
that's fantastic. That is
Like,
fantastic. But can he
yeah.
get enough PT? Now, we haven't even broached this subject with Mullins. Trade candidate?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think there's a really good chance he is a trade candidate. Like, you know,
Like they're not going to get the moon for him, but he's not old. He'll be 30 next year.
Yeah.
He has our years available.
Mhm.
He could be part of a bigger deal. But yeah, now if he goes somewhere,
He's
to
probably
play
gonna be
every
like a
day,
$9 million guy in ARB next year, right? Like,
that's affordable.
when you can play center field, like $9 million, that's pretty damn good.
Top 100
So
hitter on the player rater, 87th overall, 3 spots behind our boy Jake Berger, 3 spots ahead of Fernando Tatis, just since we coincidentally mentioned him earlier. Now, Tatis has done that in 75 fewer plate appearances as well. But, 87th on the player rater amongst hitters is
if
pretty
he
good for
gets out of
Sed.
that park, like, what park is going to be worse for him?
Really, like, this could be good if he gets traded, Cedric Mullins, and he gets to start somewhere. Even if it was somewhere less appealing like Pittsburgh, I would like that.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's not going to pay $90 million for a player, though.
$9 million, yes, they can. They can pay $9 million for a player.
I
Although we
didn't
just talked
say
about
they
what they did with
can't.
Tellez.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just
right.
saying
You're right.
they're
You're
not
right. You're right.
going
You're right.
to.
You're right. You're right. You're right. That's fair. That's totally fair. All right. I gave you a little treat with Ced. I got to go to a guy that's been a pain point for us, and then we can end with a little treat from me. Michael Harris did it again. Another second half surge. Now this year we weren't as aggressively, like we were very anti Michael Harris in the second round last year. He, surged to try to finish strong and still got 18-20 with a 293. This year the surge isn't going to quite get him there. It's still only 105 games. 16-9, 266 are the totals, and it's a 52-point gain to 133 WRC plus during the second half. What do you make of Harris now with another year it's been a bit underwhelming? Again, we have not been the biggest fans here. Our bias leans against him. Do you think a discounted Harris is intriguing? What do you make of him after another year?
It depends on what the discount is. Like
There is no
still,
discount. Never mind. He went 47th in the pull hitter pod.
Did he really?
Yeah. It's power and speed on a great team.
Yeah.
Savvy drafters are going to stay with a 24-year-old who is a career 286 hitter and 2020 on his 162 game averages for Michael Harris.
And here's what I'm going to say too. Like, he actually made some changes in terms of his approach at the plate that if he can stick with, like, obviously, like, he could just regress back to being the guy he was in the first half, which is pretty much the guy he has been throughout his career in terms of swinging outside the zone. Like, he's in the first half this year, Michael Harris swung outside the zone 43% of the time.
Jesus.
Like, that is like, usually when you get like over 30, we start going, hey, we don't like this because
Right.
like it's so hard to maintain like good contact or not strike out too much. No, he doesn't strike out, right? Like he just makes contact, but makes like bad contact out of the zone.
Yeah.
And then he'll go through these slumps. In the second half, he's down to 34%. It's still not great, but with his contact skills, and he is being more choosy about his swings inside of the zone as well. Like, that could work for him. Now, the other problem with Michael Harris is injuries. Like, he is just one of these guys that kind of gets nicked up quite a bit. He is yet to hit the 140 game threshold. So like, I don't think you can project him for 600 plate appearances, but
That's fair.
475 plate appearances of like a 270, maybe even actually probably closer to 280, maybe even 285 batting average with power and speed, whatever the price is. Like you said, if the price is massive, like it has been, and it wasn't a pull hitter draft, like I won't be in on Michael Harris again. But
Yeah.
if he drops, and I could see him dropping in certain drafts,
To where? Where are we thinking this drop is? 70, 60? Like, what are you thinking is a discounted price on Harris?
yeah, like 75. Like if he's down in that kind of range, like yeah, especially I think he will drop in your ESPN leagues, in your Yahoo leagues, in your CBS leagues. Like maybe NFBC because it's just a sharper clientele. You won't get that kind of discount, and so like I won't end up with him because I mostly play on NFBC.
Well,
But
part of it too is like the auto rankings play a role too. And so when it's auto ranked based on like their performance, that's going to push Harris down. And what we're saying, like, we're not trying to be arrogant about NFBC, like there's never any bad, managers or anything like that.
yeah,
But generally, in a standard NFBC league, people are going to break from the auto list a lot more, like by big margins too, and they're going to push somebody like Harris up. Whereas in your more casual leagues, it's going to adhere a little bit closer to the auto rankings, and that's going to push Harris down because he only has 105 games, and so he's just not going to rank as high on their auto rankings. And I know our boys Chris Welsh and Scott Bogman do a great job with this when they do their outlet comparisons. They compare Yahoo, ESPN, like the default lists at these places and where you can get bargains. That's in this league podcast. Y'all should check that out. They do a great job of that early in the year. And Harris could be one of those guys that like gets slotted a little higher on this outlet, gets slotted 50 slots lower on this outlet, and becomes a bargain because of that. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
So I think, I think I'm with you where if the price is right, I can get there. 47 is not the right price for me. For example, Luis Robert went 72 in that same pull hitter draft, and I would rather just take him. And I'm not even a big Luis Robert guy. It's just, is that not a similar skill set going 30 picks later the way you want, right?
The question is, will Robert go 30 picks later? Like, I mean,
right.
Like,
will he stay down there? Because subsequently, since that draft has taken place, Robert has been actually never mind. I thought he was playing better. He actually
he is not
well in September as I thought.
But there are always Luis Robert truthers,
lovers.
And
yes.
In the same way that there are Michael Harris lovers. I mean, I think both these guys are guys that I'm not going to end up with very much.
I probably won't either. They're just not my type.
Like I love guys who play every day. And I don't have to worry about trying to find a replacement for months on end.
Right. Especially from a steal source. Now, I will say I just published a Jeff Zimmerman piece, Jeff Zimmerman's Lessons Learned, and he did have a great piece in it about steals and how they are more available on the wire and how that's going to help him not draft as many. So if you are taking a Harris or a Robert and you have to replace their steals in season, that will be easier than replacing somebody's power lost. So do keep that in mind too. All right, let's end with a little treat for me. Torque did it again. Spencer Torkelson. I wanted to end with Harris and Torque because they're two guys that, had really bad first halves last year, turned it around, got hype coming into this year, and then had first half disappointments again. Now, Torque didn't turn it around to the level that he did last year, right? Like, we were excited about him. He had an amazing summer last year, hit 31 homers, and it was looking like he had arrived. All of a sudden, similar struggles, ends up getting sent down, which I thought was absolutely the right move. Comes back in August, looks amazing off rip. Hasn't been incredible in September, but still has 3 homers, taking some solid at-bats. I still think he lives in his head a little bit too much. I think he might be one of these guys that's a little bit too smart for their own good. There's a reason why dummies can succeed in sports. They don't get too caught up in the highs and lows of it all. And I think sometimes he's trying to hit a 9-run homer to make up for like all of his bad at-bats and really gets his... Now, that's just from observing. I have no idea. I still like Torque, though. And I don't think the price is going to ever really be high next year because he flopped again. What do you think about Torque for 2025?
Torkelson was a guy I was really, really high on coming into the season. And obviously that was a massive disappointment that he wasn't able to like kind of repeat what I thought he was going to be able. Yeah, didn't even come close. What I will say is there is not like a massive difference in the first half of the second half. The only major difference is like the barrel percentage just being, well, I guess there is a little bit of a difference there actually. The barrel percentage is up, which is huge for him. The thing that makes me think that, okay, like, hey, maybe this is a little bit sustainable is like the change in aggressiveness. He's raised his zone swing percentage from 63% up to a very nice 69%. That 6 percentage points of swinging inside the zone is nice for him. And I just believe the talent is there. Like, I really
I do
do. Like,
too.
he's a power hitter who makes like league average or just barely above league average zone contact. We know there's pop in the bat. We know he's going to play, I think, every day next season. Went down to the minor leagues, worked on things, accepted that demotion, came back, and has been pretty good. I mean, super hot 2 weeks in August, but like, and kind of a mediocre kind of finish. But I think the Tigers believe in him. I tend to believe in him. I think he's just going to be so cheap that you're not going to have to worry about like spending like the kind of pick you did this year on him. So like I'm going to take that gamble. I'll definitely do kind of a deeper dive in the offseason on Torkelson because I think he's one of these guys that really warrants it. But ultimately, like, I do just believe in the talent. And I think this is a guy that he's going to be so affordable at a position that, like we said, like first base is not
good.
great.
Right.
Like, so if you're going to be able to get a guy like Torkelson outside the top like 200, 225 picks, I think I'm just going to take the gamble and hope that, like, hey, this is finally the year that he breaks out.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of that with Torque. I'm still fully bought in because the price is going to be cheap enough to stay bought in despite another flop this year. That's why I'll still be taking a look. Like you said, the Tigers are committed to him. They're not jumping off this train at all. So he's going to get his opportunity next year. Let's just hope he can get off to a fast start because I talk about the mental piece, and again, pure speculation. I don't know him, but if he starts off slow in August again, I worry it'll be like, oh boy, here we go again, and then he's pressing from day one or from week 2 instead of letting the season develop a bit. So 25 years old for Torque next year, does have a 30 homer season on his ledger. Do not give up on the former #1 overall pick, unless you're in a league with me. Then you can forget him all you want, so I can take him.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, that's it. That's our regular season finale. Congrats on another wonderful season. I always love talking baseball with you. Like I said, we will be going throughout the winter, fall and winter. We'll take a little bit of time off in October, maybe an episode a week, maybe a week off. Actually, next week off. Next week off completely from the pod, except next week. Full week off, decompress. Then mid-October, once a week type vibe, and then in November we start to amp it back up.
Yeah.
And then I'll see you in Arizona in like a month, dude.
I can't wait.
It'll be here like so fast.
I got my plane tickets. We've got hotel rooms. Danielle's coming out with me. It's just gonna be so much fun. If you've never been to Arizona and you've like been thinking like, hey, like maybe I will go this year, it is worth it. I know it's not cheap, but I learn so much every year from like not just sitting in the panels or going to the games and things like that. Because let's be honest, I don't sit a lot of the panels and I don't go to a lot of the games. But it from like the one-on-one conversations that I have with people, I always learn something from just like absorbing things from people who are just smarter than me. And there are
the combos are everything.
And if you do come to Arizona, make sure you don't make sure you're not afraid to like come up and say hi to people and come up and talk to people. Like, I know I'm like this. I know you're like this. I know Jason's like this, but a lot of people in the industry were really, really welcoming and will like, if you come up and say hi, it is not going to be a quick conversation. It is going to turn into a discussion of, Cedric Mullins' ability to hit left-handed pitching, or is Jake Berger, a guy you should be fading or by like, do not be afraid. Do not think you are bothering anybody.
Nope.
Like, we are there to talk baseball. We are there to hang out and have fun. So make sure you come up and say hi. And
right when you see a circle of people talking, pop in there.
tell me how much you prefer me over Paul on the
Oh my
podcast. Like,
goodness.
that
Okay,
that is what you should be doing.
if you want to lie to Justin, feel free. I can't prevent y'all from doing that. But, you know, we all know the truth, and then we can live with the truth in our heads, and we can let Justin live in his fantasy world. That's fine. That's fine. I don't care. We are going to be doing our podcast out there. We don't know our time slot yet. We're trying to cap off the night. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, the podcast room. Hey, listen, can I just say how impressed I am with how that's evolved over the years? The podcast room. I think, well, I don't know if we were the first, but we were one of the first to do our podcast out there. The wonderful James Gale, who volunteered to help us produce it. Basically, he kind of got all this started because he brought all that equipment out. Our podcast, the Baseball HQ podcast, and now it's expanded. I think they're doing 10 this year, Justin.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
By the way, if we do get the nightcap, the Saturday night, 8:15 to 9:30, we will not be able to draft. And that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, and I think you are too.
To be honest, it's a sacrifice I want to make. Like,
Me too.
I don't need any more leagues.
Right.
You know, like, and two, I just feel like that is the sleeper on the bus spot. Like, it is the time in which people are the most rowdy. Right. And we kind of like, that is our spot. So I feel like
we try to get a little loose with it.
I mean, tens of thousands of people come into that podcast room.
It's unbelievable. They start coming in from all over. Tempe, they're coming in from New Mexico, they're coming over from California. It's truly unbelievable. So it's a sight to behold. And the only way to tell if we actually have 10,000 people or not is to come to Arizona. You might think we're lying, but you don't know unless you come there. So
we had people leave the World Series games last year in Arizona just to come to our podcast.
And not everyone can say that, folks. Not everyone can say. Now this year, if it's the Tigers in the World Series, I will leave the podcast to watch the World Series as opposed to
if it is the Tigers in the World Series, I mean, the game
apocalypse is coming,
and the game is still going, we will live stream the game.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
We won't even do a regular podcast. We will do a watch party for the podcast.
Just you and Justin watching me react to every play. Freaking out on every pitch.
Yeah, it would be like. I mean, I don't know how you are with watching your own team like an important.
Oh my God, Justin! I have to interrupt you real quick. It would be Game 7.
Yeah.
I don't really think the Tigers are gonna make the World Series, but it will be Game 7 of the World Series, possibly going during our pod. That could be amazing.
If it is, like we're like going to like, I don't know, do some sort of stream or something.
Right.
Like
we would have to. We have to do something with it. Absolutely.
I mean, I hope the World Series is over by the time we get there, just we don't have to worry about it.
I do too.
But I have enjoyed watching World Series games and playoff games in Arizona with everybody.
I agree.
Mostly because it hasn't been my team in those spots, except I think one time. So, because I'm one of those people, like, don't talk to me. Like, when my team's playing a really important, I said, like, if Washington ever makes it to the Super Bowl, which they won't, because they're Washington, like Daniel's like, well, what kind of party would you want to throw? It's like, a party? I'm renting a hotel room. I'm turning my phone off.
Yep.
And I am by myself. Not until just the game is over, but like for weeks. Like, this is like, because I am like, you know, obviously Jason's a huge Washington fan, but like in my like local area, like I'm the only Washington fan anybody knows. So like anything happens with Washington and I get 40 million text messages. So like if they're in the Super Bowl, like that's
the same with the Lions. Like if they had made it last year, my sister's like, should we go? I was like, to the Super Bowl? I truly have no interest in that. First off, live football kind of sucks, but also the Super Bowl sounds like a nightmare. So no, I was like, no, I want to be alone and watch it in a room by myself.
Unless you're a billionaire, like you're not getting really great tickets either.
Right.
So it's like, you're going to be middle of nowhere in the upper deck and not be able to.
I'd just rather watch at home. Football is just better on TV by leaps and bounds. Yeah. So
I haven't been to a football game in person since 2002.
I did go to the Lions Cowboys last year, but my sister got us good tickets. So when you're close, it is awesome.
Yeah.
When you're not, it's less enjoyable for me. Like, I don't mind a nosebleed baseball game. I guess just because the yard is everything for me. But football, I'm not trying to be there.
I'm also lucky where like nosebleeds at Oracle Park is like they're really good. Like you
Right.
can see,
You cannot.
see everything.
It truly lives up to the not a bad seat in the house type
Yeah.
vibe there in
So.
Oracle. All right, Justin, we got to get going. Have a good one. Good luck with everything. We will be frantically texting each other this week as you try to hold on to that 10th place spot. And I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Take it easy.